Hi, everybody. Welcome to Fresh Outlook, the show where we're talking about what you're talking about. I'm your host, Taryn Winterbrill, but just call me TWB. Well, another presidential election bites the dust, and the voters have spoken. President Barack Obama and Vice President Joe Biden have been reelected for a second term, in case you didn't hear. On today's show, we'll dive into all of the election results and, of course, what we're faced with now. It's a great question. We're going to discuss that looming fiscal cliff we seem to be approaching. We'll also get into the implications of the head of the CIA resigning yesterday, breaking news. Then we'll turn the conversation to, of course, Hurricane Sandy and all of its aftermath, the human toll, the economic and political toll, and how you can help. But before we get the conversation started, let's meet our all-star panel once again. Great to see everybody. Let's start with WJ. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and anything else you'd like to share.
Hi, I'm WJ O'Reilly. I'm educator, social commentator, and also a partner with Harvard College in its Center for Public Interest Careers.
Terrific. James?
I'm James Peterson, Director of Africana Studies at Lehigh University and a contributor to thegrio.com.
Welcome, welcome. And FM on the dial, Francesca.
That's me, Francesca Maxime. I'm a news anchor here at Embry TV and poet.
Great, and we didn't know it, or you know it, but I didn't. Anyway, we'll get back to you guys in just a second, but let's go to the videotape. In case you didn't get the memo, President Obama will be spending another 4 years in the White House and will be serving a second term. As for Mitt Romney, there's rumors he might be done with politics for good. We're not sure. Here's what went down.
After months of campaigning and weeks of debate and analysis, the results are finally in. Barack Obama has won the 2012 presidential election.
Tonight, in this election, you, the American people.
The president handily beat his Republican opponent in both the popular vote and the Electoral College.
I have just called President Obama to congratulate him on his victory. His supporters and his campaign also
Key battleground states such as Ohio that were discussed for weeks proved to be decisive in Obama's victory. But while the president can celebrate right now over winning his battle, a whole new struggle is about to begin. Americans will expect the president to tackle key issues such as unemployment and the economy. But with the future undecided, one thing is for certain. President Barack Obama can at least now try to finish what he started.
He certainly can, and just moments ago, breaking news alert, Florida has officially gone to Obama. They've counted the votes. The Electoral College is now 332 to 206. I guess no surprise there. I was surprised at how divisive this win was for Obama. Curious your thoughts. Let's start with you, JBP.
Well, I mean, it's a decisive win for him, especially once you include the electoral votes from Florida. It was just exciting to see it unfold, and it's really, really important for us to understand the coalition of folk that have put this president back in office, and it's single women, somewhere between 71 and 73% of the Asian American vote, at least 70% of the Latino vote, 93% of the African American vote, and then a preponderance of young people. So it's a great coalition of folk who have put him back in office, and I think that's what makes it more decisive, even more than the numbers. I mean, he won in the popular vote, he won in the Electoral College, but it's really about look at the group of people that put him there. And my question is the Democratic Party going to honor that coalition and really speak to the issues that they think are really important?
I mean, up to this point, from my perspective, I think the Republican Party thought Romney really did have a chance, and everyone thought this was going to be a lot closer. I thought at least the media painted that picture. Were you surprised, WJ, by what went down?
No, I wasn't surprised, and I was not. And let me add one thing: I'm part of the coalition that put Barack Obama back in office as well. No, I think that what happens is that we tend to think that things are going a certain way. I think Mitt Romney and the conservatives thought that they were hoping things would go a particular way, and spending lots of money to make sure that might happen. But reality set in suddenly, didn't it?
Right.
Well, the numbers came in. I mean, media
reality.
is always interested in a horse race, so the media is good at hyping things up. Pollsters are as well.
They like the
pundits do that, but the math doesn't lie. Nate Silver doesn't lie. I mean, all of that came out right 150% on top, and I loved his little understated way of sort of letting people know. He's like, yeah, well, I guess it might be a good time to look at my work. You know, like he wasn't talking about, this is the person, by the way, who correctly called all of the electoral results.
Every
and
state.
you know, 50 states across the board, including Florida. So, you know, it was just interesting to see people with all their spin, through all the punditry, through all of the campaign ad spending, the PAC money, that at the end of the day, some simple math did the trick.
Right, right. So it wasn't shocking to you?
No, I don't think the victory was. Although I have to say that I was a little bit concerned, you know, leading up to it. I was a little bit concerned that it was going to be close. But at the end of the day, I wasn't shocked.
I was relieved.
Yeah, sure.
But not shocked.
What about Ohio? I mean, that seemed to be that sealed the casket for Romney as soon as that was announced. Were you guys surprised by that?
I was not surprised by Ohio because I've been privy to a couple of the campaign's conversations about Ohio. It's been on their radar screen for years, and I was on a call Friday before the election, and Steph Cutter was leading the call, and they were giving us their data on all the swing states, and they were very, very confident about Ohio, and their internal data was actually correct. What's interesting about Romney's campaign is that their internal data had them winning, and so they really were shocked.
Winning everything.
But they were shocked when they lost, and so
did you hear Karl Rove?
Their internal data, though, was flawed. I mean, they've admitted it. We've had, you know, Newt Gingrich talk about how off they were with expecting that they were going to have bigger turnouts from the minority communities that came out. And it was really predominantly white men, the grand old party, the GOP, that did come out for.
Except for our own WJ.
Right. No. I just mean, I'm not saying that there weren't white men that didn't vote for Barack Obama. I'm just saying that they obviously didn't come out in. They came out in greater numbers for the GOP.
Sure, they didn't come out.
I just hope that we can resist the urge to be glib and self-satisfied and smug after this victory, because there are tens of millions of Americans who are filled with fear and loathing at this particular time. And the question is, now what?
Whoa. Fear and loathing.
Fear and loathing.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I mean, those are, to me, those are more social and cultural issues than they are political issues.
They're very real issues for roughly, for tens of millions of Americans right now who cannot accept a Barack Obama presidency.
And why is that?
Because they fear and loathe him.
Wow.
Right.
I'm just the messenger. Don't blame me.
What I wanted to say, it's just amazing when you think about it. It was such a divisive win, yet, you know, 60% of people polled say the economy is #1 on their list and we need to change it. So it's amazing how they put the same guy in there who they're not really happy with. So I was surprised at how.
My estimation is what happened was about that issue was that Barack Obama had stated they knew what he had done in the last 4 years. They knew what he had inherited and the deficits that we had as a country from the wars that were started in Iraq and Afghanistan under the Bush administration, and, you know, the deficit that was created there. They knew that the economy was already going down from the mortgage crisis, and they knew that he had requested and had mapped out a plan over the course of time, that only time over an elapsed period of time could unfold. They weren't so sure, I think, once Mitt Romney was admittedly his own accord, you know, saying, I would say flip-flopping, speaking out of both sides of his mouth. I think they weren't sure what ultimately he would bring to the table.
And I think the security,
yes, I do think that there was a certain amount of security in that, in addition to whatever other hopes that people may have for Obama in general and reasons independently that they wanted to elect him, period. I think that was one of the reasons why they elected not to trust Mitt Romney on that economic issue.
I just want to quibble for a minute about this being a divisive election. This is more of a coalition re-election than anything else. I mean, what's divisive is that you have a party that for a long time has had a shrinking base, and they've been pandering to that base that's a very homogenous base.
Absolutely.
That's what's divisive. What the president has done in getting re-elected is actually pull people together across race, across gender, across generation, and across region and religion. So that's not what's divisive. What we need is we need a Republican Party that can open up their doors.
Yes, and I always said that the person who wins this election is the person who is able to create unity after the election is run.
And that
may well be Barack Obama. I certainly hope it is.
Let's talk about Congress, the Senate. The House remains Republican, Senate Democrat. Were you guys surprised at all how those races went down?
There are a lot of things in this election that surprised me. I'm not surprised that we're essentially status quo. I am surprised that we have 18 or maybe 19 women in the Senate now, which is an amazing
girl power.
And look at New Hampshire. I mean, it's from top to bottom. It's all women from government down, governor, I should say, down to you know, Congress.
Yes, very surprised.
Sounds like gender bias to me.
Very surprised about how this guy. Very surprised about how about marriage equality has done on the ballot in certain states. Surprised about the legalization of marijuana, which for me is much more about reforming our criminal justice system. I don't care about whether it's used recreational or not. I'm tired of us arresting people and criminalizing people who use it. So there are some really, really important progressive issues that kind of emerged out of this election. I think that's really, really important.
We also should mention, I mean, talk about being a diverse election, the first Buddhist and Hindu in Congress, the first lesbian senator in Wisconsin. I mean, this has been a real breakthrough.
Incremental progress.
Yeah, no, they definitely have had a lot more. I mean, we have the most diverse makeup, I think, that we've ever had, and I think that it was borne out too by the electorate and people who came out to vote. I mean, they showed, as you saw, the statistics that have changed from the number of voters that were previously thought that the Republicans admitted that they underestimated the number of Latino voters, for example, and they are now. You'll see Newt Gingrich talk about the fact that we need to get our act together and we need to reevaluate and come up with a new game plan. And there was also a lot of talk of whether or not another network, the Fox News network, which is admittedly a conservative network, just as much as MSNBC is leaning more to the liberal side network, that there's been a lot of talk too as to whether or not they shot themselves in the foot, if you will, over the attempts to promote a Republican regime and a Romney regime. And so I think there's going to be a lot of soul searching from the GOP after this and find out what they need to do to move forward.
You mentioned that it's Newt Gingrich is actually asking those questions. Well, if that isn't a kiss of death, I mean, where are the leaders that are relatable in the GOP? Isn't it time for them to start emerging?
Is there someone you think that should have run? Should have been Rubio. I mean, do you think Mitt Romney was the wrong choice?
I think that
or the best
with
of the
hindsight, Chris Christie is emerging. I think we're going to talk about him later.
Yes.
He is emerging as actually one of the strongest candidates in the GOP, without a doubt.
Absolutely.
Very relatable.
Even without being in the field this year, he was one of the strongest. He polled the strongest amongst those who were actually in the field.
The question is should he run as an independent or a Democrat now after his romance there with Obama? Because I think that in some ways he was kind of distancing himself from Mitt Romney and didn't really give Mitt Romney that extra boost at the end that he could have in
He already rejected him once, didn't he? He refused to run as his running mate.
Does it bother you guys about the most expensive election in history with about 45 seconds left? $2 billion, $1 billion on each side, and Romney still loses. He still loses everywhere. But all that money, I mean, it's gross.
Disgusting. A fraction of that money put into our neighborhoods that need it most would be an extraordinary thing.
This is your weekly refrain, though. Money in politics.
But this is like the PAC money. Again, this president will be able to elect new people to the Supreme Court. They can change that and overturn that.
We got to hold that thought. We got to go to break. When we come back, it's more election coverage with the panel. We'll be talking about what we face and what's to come and where we go from here. Stay with us. You're watching Fresh Outlook.